kilohertz and 100 kilohertz. The Japanese government said between 4 kilohertz and 100 kilohertz. So we made a filter. Professor Martin Graham from UC Berkeley, who's my best friend, he went ahead and he designed the filter to take out between 2 kilohertz and 150 kilohertz. So that's why I think we see the miraculous recoveries and things like that. And the results of this stuff has been, Professor Magda Havas has done research on it. Professor Sam Millam, from former head of the Washington State Health Department, he wrote a book called Dirty Electricity. He's done and also done research, and the results have been published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Professor Stephen Genesis from University of Calgary has done research on it.
So we would probably need 20 filters per house and 15 per apartment?
Yeah, it would depend on the electronic equipment, but yeah, that would be very good. You may need a couple more. Maybe you don't need. Maybe you got too many. Too many. But definitely, if you put 20 of them in a house or 15 in an apartment, you're going to feel those effects, and you should feel it immediately.
What if people are living by one of those poles that has like a transformer and all this stuff? What if they're right by one of the poles?
There's going to be a big magnetic field there, and there's going to be an electric field. But if you put the filters in, you're still going to have a magnetic field. There's nothing you're going to do in the electric field. But it's going to be clean. It's like going to Mexico and drinking the water. It really wasn't the water that made you ill. And I'm not so sure about the 60 cycle, okay? That's an area that's out of my area of expertise. But I'm not so sure the 60 cycle makes you sick. And you say, well, okay, but there's all kinds of studies that says it does. Yeah, but there's all kinds of studies that says it's inconclusive also.
What does the 60 cycles mean? Where did that come from?
Well, the 60 cycle is the power that the utility generates, okay? And it comes into our house, it runs our computer, it lights our light bulb, things like that, okay? So now, but riding on top of that 60 cycle are these high frequencies. So these high frequencies are like going to Mexico and drinking the water. It's like the bacteria in the water. The bacteria you could put on a piece of bread and it would still make you sick, right?
Right.
The high frequencies make you sick. There's no studies that are inconclusive, to my knowledge, that says exposure to these pulse high frequencies won't make you ill.
What about cordless phones? What frequency are they operating at?
They're in a gigahertz area, and they're higher frequency. And should you use them, distance work? The answer probably is no. Dr. Neil Cherry, who was commissioned by the European Parliament back in '98, his report came out called the Cherry Report. And he said the safe level exposure to high frequency is 0. So, and he did a review of the literature. Okay, he was commissioned by the European Parliament. So that's his area of expertise. So I have to default to him. But are we going to, anybody listening to this interview is not going to use their cell phone less than they are now. Just that you can take some precautions. You can, use the speaker, hold it farther away, don't carry it in your pocket, turn it off or something like that, and then answer your messages. Use it. Distance is a big thing. You can take some precautionary things, but I have a cell phone, and I use it, and I'm not going to not use it. I have to use it for business. But, if I'm in my office, I sit it on a table that's probably 10 feet away from me. I can get up and walk 10 feet to answer it.
And what do you think about the microwave stations? Can we talk about their potential impact on us in general?
It depends on the tower. You'd have to define more. If you're looking at something like a cell tower,
right?
There's two issues with a cell tower. One is, of course, the broadcast signal. That's what's coming through space. And the other issue with the cell towers is the fact that there's a switch mode power supply in the base. And you can say, well, what's that? Well, what happens is all the electronic equipment in the base of that cell tower runs on DC current, direct current. And, of course, the utility supplies us with alternating current. So we have to change the AC current to DC current. And when we do that, we have this switch mode power supply. And it creates a lot of high frequencies and puts it right back on the line. And so then if you're living 2 blocks from the cell tower, or 3 blocks or a mile, you're still going to get all this dirty electricity coming into your house because they put the cell tower in the neighborhood.
So is there anything else we can do besides the installation of these filters?
If you're living next to a cell tower or something where there's a broadcast signal, there's some conductive material you can use, to shield it. 3M makes a security film that would go over your windows that really cuts it down really good. There's all kinds of devices and things, but going back to me, I'm a measurement expert,
right?
And I like to see things on a meter. And when I see things on a meter and then I put something there and it goes away or reduces it and then I take it out and I see the meter change, I need to see the changes on the meter. And so, I mean, there's devices out there that are very good devices and equipment that you can use that will help you, lower these levels. And of course, it's very helpful. But you need to have a meter to be able to prove what happened.
But the meter that you sell has to do with inside people's homes. It's not necessarily where you can go outside in it and you pick up higher frequencies above the 150, right?
No, there's a meter that's sold called a HF35C, like high frequency 35C. It's an excellent meter. It's a directional antenna. If you want to measure something coming through space, like your wireless internet, deck phones, your cell phone towers, broadcast signals, things like that. And I think it's about $450 or something like that. And you can get it from like less EMF out of New York.
So that's something that people should probably have. But firstly, what's going on in their home is key, right?
What's going on in your home are the most biologically active frequencies, okay? And so that meter that we sell, I think it's like $125 or something. And if you buy some filters or something, they give, the dealers will give you a deal on it or something like that. But what's on the wires in the house, you're going to see the most significant change. Even blood sugar, there's been research done with blood sugar, and people have had from 52 to 92% reduction in blood sugar. Blood sugar is a number. In other words, you can check your blood sugar, put the filters in, get the number below 30 on that meter, and then check your blood sugar again. And if you get that number below 30, you probably will use less insulin, things like that.
How fascinating.
So, I mean, maybe the Dalai Lama can psychosomatically change his blood sugar, but I don't think you can or I can.
Maybe we have the capacity to, but we don't.
Well,
if I live a few more hundred lifetimes. Let's talk about the fact that 70% of the current are in the phase wires in North America. So what does that tell us about walking around?
Well, I wouldn't get worried about walking around because, your legs aren't, the farther apart you put them, the more potential, the more current would go through you. Walking, and you got to remember when you're walking, you're on one foot, then another foot, so you don't have a complete circuit. But we can put EKG patches on a person's ankles, and we can have their feet shoulder width apart, and we can see a 60-cycle sine wave. So is there current going through you? The answer is yes. Okay, it depends on where you are. I live in the Midwest, so the soil is more conductive. Maybe Texas or some places in California, where it's a lot of sandy soil or something, it isn't as conductive. So you won't have, you would get different readings, of course. And the time of day would make a big difference because if people are home using a lot of appliances or things like that, then you'll probably have higher levels. So does current go through your body? The answer is yes. Walking around out on the ground, I mean, if I want to walk barefoot, I'm going to walk barefoot. I'm not going to change my lifestyle because of it, but I certainly wouldn't connect myself to it and sleep on, overnight or something like that to some mat that's connected to it.
I want you to explain why so that we understand, because I was so excited about this one product and just found out that it's doing something different than I was told. So explain it.
Okay. Like I said, you wouldn't think about going out onto the electric utility, onto the grid, climbing up the pole, and connecting a wire to the bottom wire of the pole, right? The electric utility's wires, bringing that wire back in and connecting it to your mat and laying on it. Would you? I mean, you wouldn't think about doing that.
No.
Well, if you take your grounding mat, for example, and you plug a wire into that third prong on your electrical receptacle, that wire goes to your fuse box or your panel, your breaker